back to Maypole Farm. I almost said Greenlands then, jeez. They're starting out with a bit of multiplayer work, or at least work on DS Agri. So, guys were hammering out the baling contracts again, and I decided to mow this immense field. Brian, if you're watching this embarrasses the field that you've just posted you making hay bales on. No, this literally took me weeks. We do end up mowing a few horses as well. They are fine. They actually just needed a bit of a haircut. So yeah, this field is comically small for the I guess setup that we've got. It's a weird one, this, because all of the pastures that go with the animal pens on Maypole are also grass fields, because you might not necessarily put animals in them. You might sell the animal enclosure and just use it as a grass field. So they do all get grass working contracts. So, and given that I've populated them all, it does look a bit weird. But it is what it is, and we are going to get it done. So yeah, and weirdly for this one, so this field was not at its fully grown state, which I think this is one of the first times I remember seeing a grass working contract where the field wasn't at max growth. Now I guess the reason for that is that it's probably the first time I've been on a map where almost every single baling contract ever has been done. So we're on kind of the second cycle of them. I guess there's a possibility on here actually that these fields are going to get to the point where they need liming, and then obviously they're not getting fertilized. So one of the things that I have been thinking about with this is whether there's a way to get fertilizing contracts on NPC grass fields. If anyone knows, stick a comment below. I have an idea of how I could force it to do them, and I think that might be useful. If I wasn't running precision farming, I would take the Mr. CDP approach, and I would buy the fields, get them limed and fertilized, and then sell them again. But because we're running precision farming, that won't work. So yep, a little bit of Crash Tech doing some windrowing for us. I think it was windrowing, or maybe tedding. Windrowing. It's a windrower he's got on the back. Yeah, I'm not sure. If you've got suggestions, let me know. I know there are liming missions and there are rolling missions, and at some point I might add those in. Mainly just to give the guys more work to do. It amazes me how many contracts 4 or 5 people can churn through in a weekend. You'll see later on just how much money DS Agri has made when I steal some of it, because I need to do some things on the farm. So yeah. Oh God, I feel so rough this morning. It's day. I don't know how to count the days really. So it's the morning of me being away with work. So it's technically, this is like the 3rd day away from home. I'm going to be driving home in a bit. So need to go get some breakfast, some caffeine, and then drive home. About a 3 to 4 hour drive, depending on traffic. And annoyingly, I have a meeting this afternoon, so I actually have to get back for work. So I'll pick that up again. The Fent has been out doing some cultivating contracts, and was kind of abandoned in the field. So brought that back. Going to give it a clean up and get this put away. I don't think there are any more cultivating contracts. Do want to give this tractor a bit of a tune up at some point. Get a bit more power out of it. Plenty of options for that, I believe. So we'll get that done at some point. Yeah. God. So ideally, having been away for a few days, I probably would have taken today as a lazy day to, I say, get up late. I was awake at 5, So that was a bit annoying. Really didn't sleep well last night at all. So that sucked. But yeah, I would have probably had a lazy day, left here a bit later, headed home and not done any actual work. But that is not the case today. So no, it's not a case, it's a Fent. I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, so got to get back. Got to do some prep for another meeting. This week is awful for meetings. So guys, I've finished a whole bunch of baling contracts. So going to get those redeemed. Some of them were pretty huge. The 51, 52, 53 set of fields is massive. You can see them there. So many bales off of those and so much cash. So I'm going to redeem all of those, and we're going to use some of that cash to pay off some of the leased kit. Because some of it actually is at the point where it's probably worth making that payment. So one of the 8410s is up at 15 hours already. So, yep. And we've owned it for less than a month. That's crazy. I guess it's been 3 game days and the guys have been working hard. So that's that paid for. That was 60 odd grand, I think. That one can wait a bit. So the trailer, not so much. I'm going to get the mower brought. So this is the mower that I use. First on DS Agri. Yeah. The baler's fine. So that mower I've used forever. Is this what I use for the zero grazing? But it's nice to actually own it now. I need to swap it across to my farm because those guys don't need it. They have their butterfly mowers, but it really helps me out with the zero grazing. So my connection was a bit laggy on whatever night it was I was playing this. I think I might have ended up switching to my phone connection to play. And the guys were baling, I think, still at this point. I think they were still doing grasswork contracts, but having a lot of lag, that was not ideal for doing like bale stacking particularly. So I grabbed one of the seeders and my 7810, and there were a couple of nice little seeding contracts to get done. So get those cleared off, get a bit more cash back in the bank. So, and then, yeah, so there's a couple of canola seed contracts. I'm expecting when we get into later into September and October, there's probably going to be a lot of seeding contracts. I'd quite like to get rid of these 2 seeders, the 2 John Deere ones, and get something more what I feel fits kind of the UK. These always feel like very American seeders. I don't know if they are or not. They just feel that way to me. So yeah, I would quite like to swap them. That will probably mean losing some width. I think, we might be limited to like 4 meters rather than these are like 5 and a bit meters, I think. That's why I quite often use them, because they're kind of cheaty. They're quite cheap, low horsepower requirement, and really wide. But I use them too much, and I think I'd just rather use something else, even just from a visual point of view. So, yeah, it's one of those weird things. You guys know how my brain works, and quite often I sort of think, particularly on here with like the old things, like those old tractors work just the same as these new tractors. They have just as much power. Quite often they can do the same job, and because it's a game, it's not really that different. I think the biggest thing that does change actually is these more modern tractors do have much nicer gearboxes. That is something that definitely FS22 has made a bit of a lag spike there. Has made a feature that makes older tractors feel older, if that makes sense. You get the the Ford that we had on here and that I use on Furling with the Patron series, that I got so frustrated with the gearbox that I actually ended up going in and editing it to just speed the gear changes up a little bit, because I think I might have done it on Calmsden as well, because I had it on Calmsden as well. It's a really nice tractor. Actually, no, on Calmsden I think I went to manual gear changing, so it was annoying me that much. But yeah, it's a really nice tractor. It's just the sort of super realistic or more realistic gearbox is a bit frustrating to deal with. And that is a feature of more modern tractors, I guess, that generally the gearboxes are smoother, and that makes for a nicer driving experience. So yeah. Otherwise, it is kind of a everything does the same kind of thing, and it's the same with the Cedars. Really, it'll just look different. Does the same job. This is a direct drill as well, so it's not even like we're gaining direct drilling. It does fur as well, and capacity might be different. I need to have a look at what the DS Agri tractors can run. Obviously, they've got some meatier, beefier was the word I was looking for, beefier tractors. So yeah, we might be able to go bigger. I don't know. I've been meaning to have a bit of a YouTube or Google or whatever search for what Cedars looked like in the UK in the 90s, so that we could get something that just kind of looks right. Yeah. Did I even finish talking about feeding rough? I don't know if I did. So yeah, I didn't sleep great. If I'm in a hotel, I always have to have the window open because the air conditioning makes me feel rough, and this might just be being in air conditioning too long. So I was in an air conditioned building yesterday as well, which doesn't help. So my throat is kind of feels and sounds to me kind of gravelly. My nose is all blocked up, and I'm really hoping that that's air conditioning. So I'll find out in a couple of hours, because when I'm in the car, I won't have the air conditioning on. I might have the window open for a bit, and I'll see if I feel any better or not. Yeah. Anyway, I have finished talking about it now. So other things that we are going to get done today is just really getting into the start of September and tackling one of the jobs that I've wanted to sort for ages, and I haven't been able to afford. Actually, I could now with what I went for. So I would like to extend the slurry storage capacity on the farm. What I wanted and what I couldn't find, and I did try late last night. I was up later than I like to be, and early this morning. I wanted an above ground slurry tank because it's quite common in the UK. I think it looks quite cool, but I wanted it to be an extension, and it also needed to fit on the yard. There are some really big slurry tank extensions, but they wouldn't have fit where I wanted with the visual that I wanted. So I'd found a mod that had the visual that I liked, but it was a slurry tank, not a slurry tank extension. And so I set about trying to edit it so that it would be an extension instead. And I was trying to do it, so you can see the guys are working down in 106 at the moment. I claim the contract that we've just finished. I set about trying to edit it to turn it into a slurry tank extension. I just couldn't get it to work. And I was kind of debating in my brain, do I just go with a slurry tank and just manually move it, or move it in the XML, or just go look again at what slurry tank extensions I can find? And I have found one that I like. It's a different visual, but I think it works. So yeah, I think it works. So I'm happy with what we've got. It's actually a bit cheaper than I expected. It's a bit smaller than I expected. And that does mean we've saved some yard space, and we don't have a lot of yard space. So that is a good thing, because I have no idea how we're going to fit it in. But at some point, we do need to bring probably end of October, November. We're going to need to bring the cows in from the pasture, and they might fit in the sheds we've got now. They might. That's going to be a lot of work, because that's going to mean a lot of feeding and bedding, or more often feeding and bedding, but that might work. So that's an option. If not, we're going to have to put another building in so we can house those cows at the farm. Store is such a bad word. But that for what we're doing with them, yeah, we're going to need somewhere else to house the cows at the farm. We'll work something out. Yeah, actually, I know what I need to do. I was just thinking I don't have a lot to do in September. I need to get the grass field replanted with our arable crop. That's that contract done. I find these trips really do pickle my brain. So we're going to jump across to DS Agri. You can see they have 268,000 euros in the bank. That should be pounds. And basically, there are a ton of harvesting contracts that have cropped up. So corn, canola, all of the root crops are kicking in, but also sunflower. So I'm not taking the root crop ones because I need to have a chat with the guys about whether they want to get stuck into a whole load of root crop harvesting contracts. They are really good money. And we could afford to buy a couple of the little root crop harvesters, not taking the weeding contract. But yeah, that'll keep them busy for a bit. Probably going to buy a second combine for the corn and the sunflowers, but transferring 100 grand over to me because I need some money. But yeah, probably going to get a second combine so that the with the smaller header we've got for corn and sunflowers, they can get through those, and there's no baling, so they'll be able to get through those so much quicker. So I think for those guys, we're going to need to get a couple of corn headers and another combine. It's probably going to be about 100 grand. And then if they want to get into the root crop contracts, then we'll have to get a couple of root crop harvesters as well. So yeah, but I needed the money to sort out my slurry storage issue. Actually, there's quite a lot of contracts dropping out, but I had totally forgotten that. And so the other grass pasture, the one that's got the silage bales in, we need to turn in that grass crop. So it probably doesn't need it, but in reality, and I am basing this entirely off of Cow Farmer Dan stuff. So I love watching his videos, and they do this quite often. So they would spray the grass off to kill it first, but they then plow in grass. So that is what I'm going to do. We could probably use something in game. We could just direct drill into it, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to plow in the grass. So yeah, but so a bit of the grass has grown on, we've just seen obviously on the new pasture. So a bit of zero grazing going on there. It's got us sorted with that, which is nice. When we get into the point where we can't zero graze anymore, I think I'm going to buy a TMR mixer. I think we're at that point. Probably the one that I leased last time we'll buy. And through the winter again, we'll feed them TMR. And then in the summer again, we'll probably go back to zero grazing. Yeah, I was looking for the John Deere. There was a pretty big gap between me recording what was at the start of this video and me recording what was at the end of this video, as sometimes happens. So, and I'd forgotten where I'd left the John Deere park, because I thought, you'll see where it's parked later on. I thought this would be a really cool point to restart the video, but I forgot. So it's not actually at the yard. Yeah. Oh well. I'm going to put a couple more silage bales in for the cows. Just top their feed up a bit, and then we need to move those two. Well, we don't actually in the end, but I moved those two because I was looking at a much bigger slurry store that would have fit really nicely here. The base game ones don't fit, and a lot of the other above ground slurry stores actually don't fit. They're all quite big, and this farmyard is quite small. But the fact that we haven't used that does leave some space for maybe putting another building in for housing cows, which is cool. So yeah, I'm guessing with where we are now, probably the latest batch of calves won't end up going out to graze until the summer, which is fine because they're not going to calve for over 2 years. We're not going to get calves out of them until they're 28 months old. So that's fine. The fact that they can graze most of the year is cool. It works for me. So they're all fed. You can see the slurry stores are very full. I think these only hold 50,000 litres, which with Maize Plus running, even with not that many cows, is not much. They will very quickly produce more than that, as you can see. So I put the Zetor away, completely forgetting that I need to go and move the rest of those bales, which was a bit of a forgetful on my part. As I say, I was doing this later than I would normally like to be recording last night. I kind of lost track of time, if I'm honest. I lost track of time, and so I've been playing Battle Pirates again. I think I've mentioned that, and it was they have many events through the month, but it was the main big event this weekend. And I say weekend because usually there used to be a weekend event. They used to run, I think, from Friday to Sunday, something like that. They now run for about 6 days, I think, 5 or 6 days, and because I hadn't played that game for about a year, I was massively behind, and so I had to do quite a lot of catch up. So I was playing that this evening for a bit first to finish off what I could do on there, and then wanted to play some Farm Sim. So yeah, it was later night than I would like. Not massively late, probably for you guys not even late, but for me later than I would like. And then I pretty much remember being awake from about 3, got up at 5, but pretty much remember being awake from about 3. Who needs sleep anyway? It's way overrated. It's way overrated. We'll get these moved, and then we'll get some slurry storage put in. I've said it a few times, but just in case you've missed it, I am most likely not around this weekend online. So this video should come out on Saturday, pretty much from Friday evening through to Sunday evening, Monday afternoon. I'm not expecting to be online much at all. So yeah, and that's probably why for the guys on Patreon, the multiplayer server won't have been up this weekend. Just because I'm not around and I need to do stuff as well. Let's put in some slurry storage, shall we? So I had a few goes at this, a few options that I looked at, and we're going to go for the small square slurry liquid manure tank. So what I'm trying to work out here is whether this one, with how far away it's working, whether it'll pick both up. It was borderline. But I think the visual of this fits quite well with what's there already. It's essentially we're digging and lining another underground slurry pit. So I think that works. I'm quite happy with the visual. I haven't left myself as much space as I thought next to it, so maybe my idea of putting another shed in there isn't going to work now. But it has picked up on the one next to it, but not the furthest one. But because it's only 10 grand, I'm going to put a second one in, basically, because we can. So that'll work quite nicely, I think. Do need to work out where I am going to house these cows. I'm half thinking that we might do something kind of interesting, actually. I am half thinking that we might do something interesting. Yeah. Or we might have to buy some more land. Or we might have to build a shed up at the pasture. I don't know. I don't know if there are any other small plots of land that we could pick up. Maybe we could do something up at DS Agri. Don't know. I'm going to have to explore options in the next few game months so that we are organised and sorted. That's the log that I can never get around to selling. That was from when we took the bit of hedge out just there. But I think we can very nicely stick another extension there. That, I mean, each one has 150,000 litre capacity, which is going to last a lot longer. Yeah, happy with that. We probably still will need to do some slurry carting and stuff, but yeah, that helps take the pressure off. We do need to bed the cows up as well when we come back next time. Yeah, but we're now just going to go and find where I left the John Deere, because I was just checking. I was worried that we might have. I realised the milk trigger is here as well, so we need to make sure we have a trailer that can't load slurry, because otherwise that's going to be a nasty milkshake. Yeah, so I'd left the tractor up at the cow pasture. The cows aren't grazing very much of this, so we might have to bring some mowers up so we don't lose this grass. Was why I came up here. So yeah, might be doing that at some point as well. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, click the like button. Comments, questions, suggestions below. And I will see you next time on Maypole Farm.